Marcus Chen was 41 years old and earning $34,000 a year as a night janitor at Silverton Tech when the CEO's daughter laughed in his face during the manager interview. And what the HR director found in his classified personnel file 90 minutes later would cost them a $127 million government contract. The fluorescent lights of Conference Room B hummed like angry wasps on the 47th floor of Silverton Tower in downtown Seattle. Marcus stood in his $67 Walmart uniform, navy blue with his name stitched in faded yellow thread. Across the mahogany table sat 5 people in suits that cost more than his monthly rent. Victoria Silverton, 28, CEO's daughter and VP of Operations, wearing a $4,200 Armani blazer. Her Cartier watch, $18,500, caught the light every time she checked it, which was often. "Mr. Chen," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of pity rich people reserve for the hopelessly inadequate. "I'm confused why you're here. This is an interview for Director of Facilities Management. You're a janitor." Marcus kept his face perfectly neutral, a skill he'd learned in places where showing emotion could get you killed. "I saw the job posting," he said quietly. "I have relevant experience." Victoria glanced at her colleagues, Jeffrey Roth, CFO, 52, and Amanda Pierce, head of HR, 39. They weren't even trying to hide their smirks. "Relevant experience," Victoria repeated slowly, as if explaining to a child. "This position oversees 14 facilities across 3 states, manages an $89 million budget, and requires security clearance for our defense contracts." She leaned forward. "You empty trash cans." The room went silent, except for the hum of the lights. Marcus thought about his daughter Sophie, 9 years old, waiting at home with Mrs. Park, the neighbor who watched her for $8 an hour, 3 nights a week while he worked the graveyard shift. "Wanda dositus lustatunus." He thought about the envelope in his locker downstairs. The one he received yesterday from the Department of Defense. The one that changed everything. "I also sanitize floors," Marcus said evenly. "Replace light bulbs, fix broken locks, and maintain HVAC systems across all 14 buildings. I know every mechanical room, every electrical panel, every security checkpoint in this company. I know which doors don't seal properly in Building 7, which cameras have blind spots in Building 3, and exactly how long it takes emergency services to reach each location." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "That's wonderful, Mr. Chen. But this job requires leadership experience, budget management, strategic planning." She glanced at his application. "I don't see anything here that suggests you've ever managed anyone, let alone an $89 million operation." "You're right," Marcus said. "My application doesn't show that." "Good. So we're done here." Victoria started to stand. "Because it's classified," Marcus continued quietly. Everyone froze. Amanda Pierce, the HR director, frowned. "I'm sorry, what?" "My leadership experience," Marcus said. "It's classified. Level 4 security clearance. Your background check wouldn't have triggered it because I listed my occupation as facilities maintenance, which is technically accurate." Jeffrey Roth laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "This is priceless, Victoria. He's claiming he has classified military experience. Next, he'll tell us he was a Navy SEAL." "Air Force," Marcus corrected. "Para-rescue, 18 years active duty. Retired as a Master Sergeant 3 years ago." The room went completely silent. If you enjoy stories of hidden identities and powerful revelations, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are brand new stories here every day, and I'd love to know in the comments where you're watching from. Victoria's face had gone pale. Even she knew what para-rescue meant. The Air Force's Special Operations Unit. The ones who jumped into war zones to rescue downed pilots. The ones with a training pipeline so brutal that 80% of candidates washed out. "That's quite a claim," Amanda said carefully. "Do you have proof?" Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a single business card. He slid it across the table. "Colonel Sarah Martinez, Pentagon, Defense Contract Management Agency. She can verify my service record. She's also the contracting Officer for your $127 million Joint Strike Fighter maintenance contract. The one up for renewal in 6 weeks. Victoria's hand shook slightly as she picked up the card. Why would we need to call the Pentagon about a janitor? You don't, Marcus said. But you might want to call her about the facility security. Violations I've been documenting for the past 3 years. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Jeffrey leaned forward, his friendly demeanor evaporating. What violations? Building 7? Room 342, Marcus said, his voice still perfectly calm. Classified documents left on desks overnight, visible through windows from the parking garage. I've photographed 47 separate incidents. Building 3, server room B, door propped open with a brick for ventilation because the HVAC system you refuse to upgrade can't handle the heat. Load. That room contains encrypted communication systems for the JSF contract. Building 11 loading dock. Delivery drivers entering secure areas without badge. Verification because your security manager, hired by you, Ms. Silverton, is your college roommate who has 0 security training. Victoria's face had gone from pale to red. You've been spying on us. I've been doing my job, Marcus said. As a janitor, I have access to every room in this company. I see everything. And 3 months ago, the DoD asked me to document security compliance as part of the contract renewal process. He pulled a thick folder from inside his jacket. This is my report, 742 pages. Colonel Martinez has a copy. So does the Defense Security Service. Amanda grabbed the folder with trembling hands. She opened it to a random page. Her face went white. There were photographs, time-stamped and detailed, documents left in printers, security badges taped to desks, employees tailgating through secure doors, confidential designs pulled up on screens, visible through windows. Every single one was a violation of the facility security, clearance that allowed Silverton Tech to bid on defense contracts. This is 18 months of documentation, Amanda whispered. Some of these violations could result in criminal charges. Why didn't you report this immediately? Jeffrey demanded. I did, Marcus said. I filed 23 separate incident reports with your security department. Every single one was ignored. The last one I filed, about classified documents in a trash can in Building 7, was returned to me with a note from Ms. Silverton's assistant. He pulled out a printed email. It said, "Please focus on your assigned duties and stop wasting management's time. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped, so you went to the Pentagon." I went to my former commanding officer, Marcus corrected, who went to the Pentagon, because when you hold a top secret clearance, you have a legal obligation to report security violations, even after retirement, especially when they involve national defense. The room was silent except for Amanda's rapid breathing as she flipped through page after page of violations. Miss Silverton, she said quietly, her voice shaking, this is catastrophic. If the DoD sees this before we remediate, we lose the contract. We lose all defense contracts. That's 68% of our revenue. Jeffrey's face had gone gray. How much would remediation cost? Full security system upgrade across all 14 facilities. Amanda calculated quickly. New access control, camera systems, secure document handling, staff retraining, minimum 14 million. And that's if we move immediately. Victoria turned to Marcus, and for the first time, there was something other than contempt in her eyes. Fear. What do you want? I want the Director of Facilities Management position, Marcus said simply, with full authority to implement security protocols, upgrade systems, and hire qualified personnel. I want a salary of $147,000, which is $8,000 below industry standard, but covers my daughter's medical expenses. And I want a written guarantee that no employee under my supervision will ever be dismissed or demoted for reporting safety or security concerns, no matter who they report about. He looked directly at Victoria. Even if it's about you. This is blackmail, Victoria hissed. This is me applying for a job I'm qualified for. Marcus said, A job that was posted publicly. A job I can do better than anyone you'll interview, because I actually know this. Company, every pipe, every wire, every vulnerability. You can hire me, fix the problems, and keep your $127 million contract. Or you can call security, have me escorted out, and explain to your father why you lost the company's biggest revenue stream because you thought a janitor wasn't worth listening to. Amanda looked at Victoria, then at Jeffrey, then back at the folder in her hands. He's right, she said quietly. We need him. Colonel Martinez's next compliance review is in 4 weeks. If we don't have remediation in progress, we're done. Jeffrey ran his hand through his silver hair. Donald Silverton is going to lose his mind. Let me handle my father, Victoria said, though her voice had lost its confidence. She looked at Marcus with something close to respect, or at least acknowledgement that he was more than she'd assumed. Fine, Mr. Chen. You're hired, but understand this, you report directly to me. And if you embarrass this company, if you fail, I will personally ensure you never work in this industry again. Marcus stood, buttoned his janitor's uniform jacket, and extended his hand. I won't fail. Ms. Silverton, I've spent 18 years pulling people out of situations where failure meant death. Managing your facilities will be easy by comparison. As he walked out of conference room B, leaving 5 stunned executives behind, Marcus allowed himself the smallest smile, not because he'd won, but because Sophie would never again have to worry about her medical bills, and because, for the first time in 3 years, he'd be able to pick her up from school like a normal dad. Instead of sleeping through the afternoon after working all night, the things we do for our children, he thought, the things we endure, the pride we swallow, the invisibility we accept, until the moment we don't have to anymore. The Marcus Chen, who walked into Silverton Tower that morning, as a janitor walked out as its director of facilities management, but the real change wasn't in his title. It was in his daughter's face when he told her the news that evening. Does this mean you'll be home for dinner, Daddy?
Every single night, sweetheart.
Every single night. 3 weeks after Marcus Chen was hired as Director of Facilities Management, Victoria Silverton discovered exactly how badly she'd underestimated him. And it started with a phone call at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Victoria was at Lumen, a restaurant in Seattle, where entrees started at $78, celebrating her engagement to Bradley Ashford, heir to Ashford Maritime Logistics. Combined family wealth, approximately $340 million. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a third time. Answer it, Bradley said, annoyed. It's clearly important. Victoria stepped away from the table, her 2900 Valentino heels clicking on the marble floor. Victoria Silverton. Miss Silverton, this is Marcus Chen. I'm in Building 7. We have a situation. Something in his voice made her stomach drop. What kind of situation? The kind where you need to get here immediately. And Miss Silverton, don't call anyone else. Not your father, not the police. Not yet. Just come. She arrived 23 minutes later, still in her engagement dinner dress, to find Building 7's parking lot empty except for a black SUV she didn't recognize. Marcus was waiting by the service entrance, wearing jeans and a Silverton tech jacket, not the janitor uniform, not the business attire of a director. Something in between. What's going on? She demanded. Why did you call me and not security? Because your head of security is the problem, Marcus said. Quietly. Follow me. He led her through the building's maintenance corridors, areas she'd never seen in 5 years of working there. Past mechanical rooms and electrical panels, down a stairwell that didn't appear on any public floor. Plan. They emerged in the server room on the 3rd floor, the one that handled encrypted communications for the defense contracts, standing in the middle of the room, photographing equipment with a professional camera, was Jennifer Walsh, Victoria's college roommate. The head of security. Jenny? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Jennifer spun around, her face going white. The camera fell from her hands and shattered on the concrete. Floor, Victoria, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like you're photographing classified equipment, Marcus said, his voice hard. At 11:30 p.m. when you're not scheduled to be here. Using a camera with no digital signature that can't be traced. He walked to a laptop, open on a nearby desk. She's been at this for 47 minutes. Full. Specs on the JSF communication. Systems. Encryption protocols. Frequency bands. Hardware configurations. She's been uploading everything to an encrypted server in the Cayman Islands. Victoria felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. Jenny, tell me he's wrong. Tell me you weren't selling our secrets. Jennifer's face crumpled. Do you know what you pay me, Victoria? $7,000 a year. I have $340,000 in student loans from Georgetown. My apartment costs $2,800 a month. You just got engaged to a man whose watch costs more than I make in 6 months. Someone offered me $2.3 million for this information. What was I supposed to do? Not commit treason, Marcus said flatly. That would be a good start. He pulled out his phone and dialed Colonel Martinez. It's Master Sergeant Chen. I have the security breach. Building 7, server room B. You're going to want to send a team. Victoria sank into a chair, her $6,200 engagement ring suddenly feeling obscenely heavy. How did you know? She whispered. I didn't, Marcus admitted. But 3 days ago, I noticed someone had been accessing the server room during off hours. The new security system I installed tracks every badge. Swipe with facial recognition. Ms. Walsh was coming in between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. 2 or 3 times a week. Always when the building was nearly empty, I reviewed the security footage. She was careful, but not careful enough tonight. I waited. Why didn't you call the police immediately? Because I called you, Marcus said. You hired her. Miss Silverton, against the recommendation of your HR department, against the advice of your father. You vouched for her. Security clearance. Personally, if this goes public, before you have a chance to manage it, it doesn't just destroy her. It destroys you too. Victoria looked up at him. This man she dismissed as a janitor 3 weeks ago. This man who now held her entire career in his hands. What do you want, Marcus? He looked genuinely surprised. I don't want anything, Miss Silverton. I'm doing my job. But you might want to call your father before the defense. Security service arrives because what happens next is going to be painful for everyone. Donald Silverton arrived at Building 7 at 1:17 a.m. in his Bentley Continental 267,000, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in 30 minutes. He was 64 years old, silver-haired, still sharp in a Tom Ford suit even at this hour. He'd built Silverton Tech from a garage startup to a $2 billion company over 31 years, and his daughter had just put all of it at risk. Dad, Victoria started, but he held up a hand. Not now. He turned to Marcus. Master Sergeant Chen, I presume. Just Marcus now, sir. Colonel Martinez called me from the Pentagon, Donald said. She spoke very highly of you. She also told me that if you hadn't caught this breach, we would have lost every defense contract we hold. She also told me something else. He pulled out his phone and read from an email. Marcus Chen is one of the finest leaders I ever served with. He saved 73 lives over 18 years, including mine, if he's working as a janitor. Someone failed to recognize what they had. He looked at Victoria. That someone was you. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Daddy, I didn't know. You didn't ask, Donald said quietly. You saw a janitor and assumed that's all he was. You saw Jenny as your friend and assumed that made her qualified. You've been making decisions based on assumptions instead of evidence. He turned back to Marcus. Colonel Martinez tells me the security upgrades you've implemented in 3 weeks are better than what some defense contractors have, and she wants to offer you a contract. Marcus frowned. What kind of contract? Consulting, Donald said. The Pentagon wants you to audit 17 other defense contractors, $340,000 per year. 3-year contract. Part-time. 20 hours a week. You can keep your position here. For the first time, Marcus looked genuinely shocked. Sir, I'm not qualified to do that. I'm just a facilities manager. You're a combat veteran with 18 years of operational security experience who just caught a spy that the FBI missed, Donald said. You're exactly who they need. And Marcus, my daughter owes you an apology. Victoria stood up slowly. Her makeup was smeared, her dress wrinkled. She looked younger than her 28 years. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I judged you without knowing. I dismissed you because of what you did, not who you were. I was cruel and I was wrong. Marcus nodded slowly. Apology accepted. Ms. Silverton, but you need to understand something. There are hundreds of people in this company you treat the same way. Janitors, security guards, cafeteria workers, maintenance staff. People you don't see because you've decided they're not worth seeing. Every single one of them has a story. Every single one of them matters. I'm not special because I have a military record. I'm exactly the same person I was when I was emptying your trash cans. The only thing that changed was what you knew about me. He looked at Donald. If I take this job, I need something in return. Name it, Donald said. A program? Marcus said. A scholarship and job training program for veterans transitioning to civilian life, full funding. $5 million over 5 years. Run through Silverton Tech. Partnered with local community colleges. We hire them, train them, promote them based on ability, not pedigree. We give people a chance to be more than what their last job was. Donald extended his hand. You have a deal. And Marcus, thank you for saving my company. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you haven't already, because the ending of this story will blow your mind. And drop a comment below telling me what you think happens next. The Defense Security Service agents arrived at 2:34 a.m. and escorted Jennifer Walsh out in handcuffs. She would eventually plead guilty to 1 count of economic espionage and serve 7 years in federal prison. The buyer for the information, a shell company traced back to a Chinese intelligence operation, disappeared into the bureaucratic void. Victoria Silverton resigned from her position as VP of Operations 3 weeks later. Not because she was asked to, but because standing in that server room at 1 a.m., watching federal agents arrest her best friend while a janitor she'd mocked saved the company, had broken something in her, or maybe rebuilt it. She took a position as a consultant for nonprofits, earning $89,000 a year, a fraction of what she'd made before. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Fremont for $1,800 a month. She broke off her engagement to Bradley Ashford, who couldn't understand why she'd throw away everything they'd built together. She called Marcus 6 months later and asked if she could volunteer for the Veterans Program. I don't know anything about training people, she admitted, but I'm good at operations, and I need to do something that actually matters. Marcus had looked at her for a long moment. Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Dress code is jeans and a Silverton Tech t-shirt. Can you handle that? She'd smiled. A real smile. Not the practice one she'd worn for 28 years. I can handle that. Now, 18 months after that interview in Conference Room B, Marcus stood in the auditorium of Silverton Tower watching the first graduating class of the Veterans Transition Program, 27 men and women, ranging from 23 to 54 years old, all of them veterans who'd struggled to find work after leaving the service, all of them now employed by Silverton Tech in positions ranging from network security to project management. Sophie sat in the front row, wearing her favorite yellow dress, the one with sunflowers. She was 10 now, her leukemia in remission for 14 months. The medical bills, once an impossible $340,000, had been covered by his new salary and the consulting contract. They'd moved into a 3-bedroom house in Ballard, $2,400 a month. Sophie had her own room, painted purple with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Marcus had never been happier. Donald Silverton stood at the podium, his voice carrying through the auditorium. This program exists because one man refused to be invisible, because one man understood that everyone has value, regardless of their title or their paycheck, because one man showed us that the person cleaning our floors might be the person who saves our company. He looked at Marcus. Master Sergeant Chen, would you come up here? Marcus shook his head, embarrassed. "Sir, this isn't about me. It's about them." "Then come up here and tell them that," Donald said. "Because they deserve to hear it from you." Marcus walked to the podium slowly. He looked out at the graduating class, at their proud faces, at the families sitting behind them, at Sophie, who was waving frantically and grinning. "3 years ago," Marcus began, "I was standing in a conference room upstairs, wearing a janitor's uniform, asking for a chance, not a handout, not special treatment, just a chance to show what I could do. Most people in that room didn't think I deserved it. They looked at my job and decided they knew everything about me. But one person in that room eventually chose to look past the uniform and see the person wearing it." He nodded to Victoria, who was sitting in the back row in jeans and a program T-shirt. "That's what this program is about. Not about what you were, but about what you're becoming. Not about the uniform you wore, but about the skills you learned while wearing it. You are not invisible. You are not less than. You are veterans of the United States Armed Forces, and you have more to offer this world than most people will ever understand. So go out there and prove it, not to them, to yourselves." The applause was thunderous. Sophie ran up on stage and hugged his legs. Marcus picked her up, this miracle of a daughter who'd survived cancer and midnight shifts and a father who worked 3 jobs to keep her alive. "I'm proud of you, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart," he said, "every single day." That night, after the ceremony, after the congratulations and the photos and the celebration, Marcus drove Sophie home through the Seattle rain. She fell asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window. He carried her inside, tucked her into bed under the glow-in-the-dark stars, and stood in her doorway for a long moment. This life, this quiet, ordinary, beautiful life, was worth more than any medal or commendation or title. Because at the end of the day, when the work was done and the battles were over, what mattered was the people you came home to. The people who loved you not for what you did, but for who you were. His phone buzzed. A text from Colonel Martinez. Saw the photos from the graduation. "Your dad would be proud." "Hell, I'm proud. You're doing exactly what Pararescue trained you to do. Saving people, just in a different way now." Marcus smiled. Saving people. That had always been the mission. Whether it was pulling pilots from burning helicopters in Afghanistan or pulling veterans from the invisible margins of civilian life, the uniform changed, but the purpose stayed the same. He walked to his own bedroom, hung up his jacket, and looked at the shadow box on the wall. Inside were his medals, the Bronze Star, the Air Force Commendation Medal, the Humanitarian Service Medal. Below them, a photo of his para-rescue team, 11 men grinning in the Afghan sun. 7 of them were gone now, killed in action or lost to the invisible wounds of war. But Marcus carried them with him every day, in the way he treated people, in the way he refused to let anyone be dismissed as unimportant, in the way he built something that mattered. He thought about that interview 18 months ago, about Victoria Silverton laughing when a janitor applied for a management job, about the moment her face changed when she realized who she was really talking to. But the truth was, his rank and his record shouldn't have mattered. He shouldn't have needed to be a decorated war hero for people to treat him with dignity. He shouldn't have needed classified credentials to be seen as valuable. Every person deserved that. The janitor and the CEO, the veteran and the student, the visible and the invisible. That was the real lesson. Not that Marcus Chen was special because of what he'd done in the military, but that every single person is special, regardless of what they've done. We just have to choose to see it. He turned off the light and lay down. Tomorrow, he'd wake up at 6 a.m., make Sophie pancakes shaped like stars, drive her to school, and go to work at Silverton Tower, not as a janitor anymore, not as someone invisible, but as someone who'd learned that the most powerful thing you can do in this world is refuse to let anyone tell you you're less than you are, and teach others to do the same. Somewhere in the darkness, Sophie called out, "Daddy!" He walked to her room. "Yes, sweetheart?" "I love you." "I love you too, Sophie. More than anything, even more than stars, He looked up at the glow-in-the-dark constellation above her. Bed, even more than stars. She smiled and closed her eyes. Marcus stood there for a moment longer, watching his daughter sleep. This was wealth, he thought. Not money or status or corner offices. This, a child who felt safe enough to sleep. A home that felt like peace instead of survival. A life where tomorrow was something to look forward to, instead of something to endure. He'd spent 18 years jumping out of helicopters to save lives. But maybe the most important life he'd ever saved was his own, by refusing to stay invisible, by demanding to be seen, by proving that the janitor in the 67th uniform was just as valuable as the CEO in the $4,000 suit, maybe more so, because he understood something they'd forgotten, that every single person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And the least you can do, the very least, is treat them like they matter. Because they do, every single one. Marcus walked back to his room, lay down and closed his eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, he slept without dreaming of war. He dreamed instead of stars and pancakes, and a little girl with a yellow dress covered in sunflowers, running through a world that finally felt safe. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.